Hello, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or if you're watching on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me today, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And Andrew, we're here for another episode of our UNC Basketball ISO Series. As you guys can tell by the title, going to be talking about Leaky Black in this one. But before we dive into that, head on over to our website, TarHeelIllustrated.com, and sign up for premium access to our message boards. The recruiting dead period ends on June 1st, not too far away from it now. And there's going to be so much recruiting content that we've got going on. Dean is going to be out at camps. She's already been out at camps. David Siss is going to be out and about covering some different basketball recruiting events and stuff like that. So if you want to see all that content, you got to be signed up. A majority of that content goes on our premium message board. So if you want to check that out, a great time to get involved, just head on over to TarHeelIllustrated.com and sign up for just $8.33 a month. But AJ, enough of my spiel on that one. I think it's time that we dive in to Leaky Black on this one. We've been doing these. We've already done a few. If you haven't seen the other ones, make sure you just go check those out after this video is done, of course. But I'm going to run through some stats on Leaky, and then I'll kick it to you as always, man. 29 games for Leaky last season, 27.6 minutes per game, 5.6 points, 4.9 rebounds, 2.4 assists. Didn't shoot great. It's kind of been a theme for Leaky throughout his career at Carolina. I think it's just who he is at this point. 36.7% from the floor and 22.2% from three-point land. So, AJ, I mean, Leaky's a guy that, I've covered since I came in a few years ago. You've been covering him, obviously, since he was here. And we've kind of seen him grow as a player a little bit. We've seen his role change a little bit depending on what year it's been. We've seen him play at point guard. We've seen him play at the four. We've seen him play all over the place, really. And I think it's a testament to how versatile he is. But I guess I want to ask you, kind of looking back at last season before we move on, what were your kind of overall thoughts on maybe how Leaky performed and just how things went on with him, playing a few different positions last year for the Tar Heels?
Numbers don't lie. Mm-hmm. I'm a big baseball guy, which is a sport loaded with numbers, and the numbers don't lie. And with Leaky, the numbers don't lie. He just has not shot well at all as a Tar Heel. And when you watch him warming up before a game, he's not a great shooter. I don't think that's his thing, but you can still be an effective basketball player if you're not a good shooter. Let's not forget that Jackie Manuel started in the Final Four national title game in 2005 and did not score in St. Louis and still won a national championship ring. So those guys are out there. Those guys that can do lots of little things to help the team win. People call them the dirty work. People call them the glue guys, whatever you want to. I think that Leaky has a lot of that in his game. We've already seen it. We've already seen Leaky, at certain nights when they needed something, he was able to give it. The one thing he wasn't consistently able to give them was scoring when they needed scoring. He did it against Miami, which ironically, Jacob, he went 4 for 4 that night in Coral Gables from three-point range. The rest of the season, he went 6 for 41 in the other 28 games. So he flared up that night, which is great because without all of those threes and without him being on the ball at the point on the last possession, feeding Andrew Platek on the baseline for the game winner, Carolina doesn't win that game. The game before that, very crucial win over Notre Dame, Leaky scored the game-winning basket. So he did step up a couple of times and he needed to score. Didn't do it enough because he's not a very good shooter. Mm-hmm. But he can do a lot of things to help this team win. I just think at times people got to understand that with the way this team last year had trouble getting good shots, there were times when Leaky just kind of took it upon himself to shoot the ball. You can't score if you don't shoot. So a bad shot's better than no shot. And they turned it over a lot. So I think Leaky was kind of put in a position where he felt like he had to score more than his skill set should typically dictate in a perfect situation. I think moving ahead to next year, the guys around him are going to be better. Caleb Love's going to be better. R.J. Davis is going to be better. Kerwin Walton's going to be better. Armando down low. Brady Manick outside. Suddenly, Leaky's not going to have to take some of the shots he felt like he had to take last year. So perhaps the percentage will go up, the efficiency will go up, and people will focus on some of the other things that I think he does pretty well and even flare it up as well with the assists, with the rebounds. Defensively, he had some outstanding games. There's a place on the court for a guy who sees the game the way Leaky does, a guy who could be an extension to Hubert Davis on the court, a guy who absolutely understands the sport and is a calm player. There's a calmness he brings to the court, which would be very helpful when you're rolling a senior out there next year, when you're back playing in front of crowds and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of value that Leaky could bring to this team.
Yeah, I remember tweeting last year. It might have been during the Miami game, funny enough. I can't remember if it was or not, but I remember tweeting like something along the lines of, a Leaky Black with a consistent jumper is elite. And the reason I said that's a big if, because we haven't seen that from Leaky. I don't think we're going to see that from Leaky based on, what we've seen from him, not only in college, but even going back to high school in some respects. But I say that, you look at him, you say, okay, he's long, he's tall, he's versatile, can play on different positions. Not only that, he's a great defender. I mean, arguably Carolina's best defender on the team and has been for a couple of years now. Now, I say that as a caveat to say, okay, you kind of talked about what his role may be this year. You're bringing in a couple different guys now. Who knows how it's going to shake up under Hubert, what lineup he's trying to roll out. We're not going to go into whether he starts or doesn't start in this podcast. I mean, I think it's up for debate depending on, it's a new staff, so who knows? And I think with how long he's been around, you might expect him to, just because, at least to start the season, because of how experienced he is. But do you see his role on next year's team, number one, most importantly, just being that kind of lockdown defender guy? Because I think looking at this team, I don't really know if there's anybody else that's, more prepared or has shown that they can do that better than Leaky.
Well, I think Caleb Love could be an outstanding
defensive
player. Mm-hmm. And Roy talked about that a lot, especially the way his defense improved as the season went on. A lot of that was when his offensive game calmed down, so he wasn't thinking about it on the other end of the floor. Leaky doesn't have that issue. Leaky is able to disconnect from whatever happened on the offensive end of the floor when he transitions to defense. And again, I think that's going to be something this team could use. They're going to roll out Leaky. They're going to roll out Manick. Those are two older guys. Manick will be in his fifth year of college. Armando will be a very experienced junior. Suddenly, this club went from the number 325 most experienced team in America to much, much, much more experienced. And part of that is Leaky. It's all of his experience is kind of weaving into the process. He had a couple of games where he grabbed 10 or more rebounds last year. He had, I believe it was 8 games where he had 4 more assists. He had 7 assists in a game, 8 assists in a game. I believe it was 7 or more rebounds in 7 games. So, he's had a lot of steals at times. He was able to sort of dip his hands into different baskets on occasion. They need that to be a little bit more consistent across the board. And I do think that if he's not asked to score as much, which I think maybe he wasn't asked by Roy to score more, but he felt like he had to because of so many ugly possessions. Ugly possessions usually lead to bad shots, and sometimes the wrong guys are taking the bad shots. And I think that was Leaky at times last year. So, yes, I do think that what you said defensively, he could be that guy. We saw in stretches the way he defended Matthew Hurt and Durham, and some other guys were Buddy Boeheim. Yep. In the second half of home against Syracuse. Well, how do you keep Buddy Boeheim from hitting a bunch of threes? You don't defend him once he gets the ball and get a hand in his face. You keep him from getting the ball. Leaky can do that. He's a smart player. He anticipates well. He's got tremendous length, so he could deny. He could deny on the wing. He doesn't have to be one of those guys, okay, I'm going to let you get in the wing. I'm going to get in my defensive stance. He can keep guys from getting the ball. If they're playing against the 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" dudes that can score around the floor, Leaky is athletic enough and long enough to stay with them, smart enough, anticipates well enough to stay with those guys and limit their effectiveness. So I think that will be one of his jobs next year. The people who are thinking about next year's team and they envision a lineup that doesn't include Leaky Black or Leaky getting that many minutes, they're not taking into consideration some of the things he will bring to the floor that I think will magnify more when he doesn't have to do certain things that are not in his skill set. If you narrow down his scope, say, these are the things we need you to do, and the other guys are taking care of what they need to, I think Leaky's game will stand out more. Some people may say, you're being awfully optimistic about what Leaky can do. Well, I don't believe so, because I've seen when this team has been on point with some stuff where Leaky was perfectly happy not scoring. When they put 99 up on Louisville, Leaky didn't score, and he was thrilled to death with that performance. You've got a senior who was willing to do the little things, who was fully happy of not scoring when your team scores 99 points a game, and he's a guy that knows the game as well as Leaky. And if you reduce the mistakes or the low ends of his game, which I think could happen if the other guys step up, you've got a very valuable player. Maybe not an all-conference player, maybe not a guy whose jersey's going to hang in the banners or anything like that, but ask Henrik Rodel and Brian Reese how important they were in 1993. Ask, like I said, about Jackie Manuel in 2005. Really good teams have dudes like Leaky Black, and I think he will embrace that role.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned Jackie Manuel in the beginning too, and then again there, because it's a great comparison. I do think he's, which isn't saying much, let me just say this, I do think he's a little bit better offensively than Jackie was. Like I said,
I think he's a lot better offensively.
Yeah, and that's not saying.
That's no slight to Jackie. Yeah, and Jackie's on the staff now. Mm-hmm. He could talk to Leaky about the value of being in that role, serving your team in that role. I have a feeling that Leaky Black's going to have a good senior year, and the narrative about him will change because we won't see him do some of those things that just aren't in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're not asking a player to do things he's not really capable of, you're usually going to get better results and better things out of it. If you can say, "Hey, Leaky, do what you're good at," I mean, it's a positive for everybody.
But let's also not dismiss the fact that he can't get better as a shooter.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a hardworking kid. He's a smart guy. I mean, I'm sure Hubert knows a thing or two about shooting, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure that that's something that Leaky is working on daily. We've seen seniors step up throughout the history of this sport in college basketball. I've certainly covered a lot where seniors step up, and you know what? If he increases that 22 to 34, 33 or 34, and he's that other guy shooting threes out there, he's going to make a higher percentage. It's going to make them that much better. I'm not saying that will happen, but to dismiss it as being possible, not possible at all, I think would be a mistake. I've seen guys get a lot better over one summer. Look at Raymond Felton from a sophomore year to his junior year. Obviously, Leaky's not Raymond Felton, but that's an example. Guys can pick it up. They can improve 8 to 12, 14 percentage points on their perimeter shooting in one offseason, and maybe this is the offseason Leaky does that, or at least improves some.
Yeah. I'm going to end this podcast with the tweet I mentioned earlier, and I'm sticking by my opinion. I did get a little stick for it, getting stick on Twitter. It never happens, right? But, a Leaky Black with a consistent jump shot is, in my opinion, is really good. Maybe elite's not the right word, but really, really good because of the other things he can do and how versatile he is. So, like I'm saying, we'll see how it goes. We'll see if that shot develops a little bit. But I think what he does do well and what he does offer to this team is valuable. You don't have to have everybody on your team that has to give you 10 points a night. You don't need that, especially when you look at some of the additions they brought in and the guys that are returning. So, yeah, really interested to see not only maybe what developments Leaky makes in his game, but kind of how he fits into this under the new staff and then when the type of basketball they're trying to play and just and see what kind of happens with him and on the court. So it'll be interesting to see with Leaky Black, but no doubt about it, very, very important player and very, very important leader for this team.
And that's the high end too. And what we're talking about is the high end. I mean, if Leaky doesn't improve at all, doesn't improve his shot at all, and he's turning the ball over and he can't get by guys in dribble, because if they're going to play 4 out, you've got to have drivers on the wing. So if Leaky has trouble driving by guys, isn't knocking down shots, is turning it over at a rate that's unacceptable, then maybe the minutes will be down. I think he's going to give them the solid glue stuff that they need.
Exactly. Agreed, AJ. I do agree on that. And like I said, going to be interesting to see how it goes down during this season. But I think it's a good place to wrap this one up. Another episode of our UNC Basketball ISO Series. Make sure you go check out the other videos we've already done as well. Just click the channel below and you will find those videos in there. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Real quick before we head out, make sure you guys head on over to our website, like I mentioned earlier, tarhealillustrated.com, and sign up for just $8.33 a month. The dead recruiting period ends on June 1st. So a ton of stuff going to pick up during the summer with visits, camps, tournaments, all that kind of stuff. And the place to find it's on our boards. Like I said, 95% of the stuff that we put in terms of recruiting goes on the boards. We also run premium articles on recruiting or interviews that you can't see unless you're signed up as a premium member. So click the description below. You'll find a link to our website in there. You can sign up for just $8.33 a month. As always, though, guys, make sure you like the video, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next one. Thanks, guys.